of the City of Blue Lake Public Safety Commission to order. It is Monday, April 7th, 2025, 7 p.m. in the Skinner store. Mandy Baker, would you establish a quorum of our commission? Commissioner Jones? Here. Commissioner Ricka?
Here.
Commissioner Hills?
Here.
Mr. Shane?
Here.
Very good. Nice to have 4 people. We're still looking for 1 more. All right, motion to approve the agenda. I'll start with the commissioners. Is there anyone that would like to change anything around, move anything?
I don't see any at this time, but should a representative of one of the other organizations that attend these meetings, I would like to see them move up to item 5 on a regular basis, because I think it would be well to grant our guests a quick hearing in case they have other business and so on.
Okay,
I think that would be a good protocol for us to establish.
so if there's anyone in the audience for that.
Right.
For this reason, yeah.
From those 4: sheriffs, fire, rancheria, and Red Cross.
Okay, there might have been someone from those agencies that were going to check in with us. They're planning to be.
We haven't really had any representatives from any of the agencies for a while, but what I can do is I can just, on your future, agendas, I can just move that up.
Yeah.
And then put everything in. That's fine.
Okay. Alrighty, then I'll open it up to public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to move anything around? All right, well, we'll come back to our commission. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Alex Ricketts, seconded by Ted Hales to approve the agenda as delivered. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. Okay, approval of minutes for the March 3rd, 2025 meeting. Start with the commissioners. Have we had a chance to look those over? And is there any changes or corrections that we have seen we need?
I have read it. And I have no changes or correction.
It appears to be in order.
Oh,
I
I
thought
wasn't here, but I did read through and
okay.
as far as I can see.
I thought they were very good minutes.
Yeah.
I caught most of the importance, all of the importance.
Okay. Then I'll open it up to public. Was there any additions or corrections to the minutes from public? They were also sent to us our email.
I'll do an email. Everybody copy of them.
Okay, back to the commission for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second it.
Motion made by Alex Ricka, seconded by Don Chang to approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2025 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Public input. The public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the commission that is relevant to the scope of authority of the City of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The commission may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the commission may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the commission takes up each specific agenda item. Is there anyone here for public input? Okay, no one. We'll move on. Item 5, illegal fireworks discussion. Mandy, why don't you refresh us a little bit, because I know we do have an ordinance on the book for the illegal fireworks, and I was never quite sure if it was for, if they specify what kind of fireworks. It's not little sparklers, but it's kind of a gray area for me. Maybe you can go over it with us a little bit. Sure. What the ordinance says.
Yeah, so California has rules already about fireworks, and they call them the I think they're the Safe and Sane fireworks. So the fireworks that you can buy at any of the fireworks stands around the 4th of July, those are all stamped with the Safe and Sane label, and those are legal in communities. What we're really dealing with are the illegal fireworks. So the ones that come across state line, a lot of them come down from Washington, might come over from Mexico, Reno. Uh, so those are more of the illegal fireworks that are causing the problems. So our ordinance talks about, the distinction between the safe and sane legal fireworks versus the illegal.
Okay, so I think one of the things people are concerned about, and not being a dog owner, I don't have personal knowledge of this, but I understand that there are certain fireworks that upset the dogs, especially maybe horses too. I don't
Dogs,
know.
horses. I mean, I think all animals are affected at, some level. Some animals definitely are affected more severely. Two of my dogs are just absolutely terrified of fireworks and just absolutely lose it. My horses run in their pastures. I have a goat. He does the same thing. All the horses over here, have problems. And then, you have also, veterans and, just, it's just a disruption on a whole host of levels.
So the safe and sane fireworks, they do not cause the problems, or they still would set the animals.
I don't think it's to the same level. I mean, that's why they're allowed in California. It's because there are certain decibel levels, there are certain durations. They have a certain height ratio, so they're not shooting bottle rockets and landing, in fields or on people's roofs and things. So those are all
I
regulated.
think most of the laws seem to center around around the actual danger of the firework, and firecrackers are, even though those are relatively small and probably the least dangerous of what's considered a legal firework, is still illegal. But a lot of people shoot them off. Used to be Mexico, bring them to Mexico and have a good time on 4th of July or New Year's. But yeah, it's mainly the dangerous ones and the loud reports. The animals don't like the loud reports, freaking out, dogs panicking, and livestock panicking because of the loud booms.
I know there's a few times where there have been people that have brought fireworks and set them off on the streets. And a lot of them are pretty high up, it seems, but they start them on the ground and they make colors and they're rather attractive and all. But are those legal or illegal? I'm not sure.
Probably, I mean, most of the stuff that you see in your neighborhoods with kids are all the safe and sane. People are buying them just, at the firework fundraiser booth, around the different cities
Yeah.
throughout the county. Like I said, it's really like the mortars and stuff that are the ones that come across state lines where they're, legal in other areas, but those are definitely illegal in California.
And then the other question would be that there's people that go to the and they shoot them off from the river. And the city of Blue Lake, as I understand it, our city limit is right on this would be the north shore of the Mad River. So if they were on the other side or in one of the areas in between the Mad River where there's a sandbar or something, is that then not our jurisdiction anymore?
No, it's not our jurisdiction. Like I said, they're all illegal. So, it really becomes an enforcement issue. But if you look at the call logs during 4th of July, it's just pages of illegal firework calls. Like the deputies aren't going to be able to keep up with any of it. And it gets to a point where they just don't even respond because there's so many calls coming in. I mean, it's not just our community, it's everywhere. It's everywhere across the nation and probably the world, that are having these issues. So, it really comes down, I think, more to education. I think maybe a stronger lobbying effort on the part of communities and cities to the state of California to crack down on illegal fireworks coming across state lines. I know in the last few years, there's been major busts of illegal fireworks coming into Humboldt County. But it's really, by the time a firework is shot, you're not going to figure out where it is. You're not going to be able to respond to it. You can't, especially in Blue Lake. It's like it could be anywhere. The sound travels around. It's hard to pinpoint. The people are gone before anyone can respond. So I think the discussion at this level really centers around education, and trying to educate the community about illegal fireworks and safety concerns and just the impacts to residents and animals, and really trying to encourage people not to, um, light them off, and just be more cognizant. Because I really don't see a, a way to stop it. Um, and the fines are fairly minimal across the board. Even the state laws. The it's just a really hard one. So I think education in our community is probably um, probably the most effective. Um, and I think, there's been talk about people driving around. I mean, I did that for a number of years, just trying to like drive around in the community and, talk with people. But, you can't be a vigilante at that point, and what are you really accomplishing, to most of the stuff happens up on the hill and over at the river bar and stuff. So, um, I don't know, maybe people in their own neighborhoods, or it could be people through the neighborhood watch program or something that want to sit out and try and regulate. But really, the majority of what we're seeing is just in the outlying areas of Blue Lake. But, it's still, the sound really, really travels around here.
Yeah, the last time I remember fireworks, I just live over there, block away, seemed to be only one in the immediate neighborhood, which was over by the next street up from our house. It was only one of the residential street of it. And there seemed to be a less frequent one down around here somewhere, this side of Greenwood. And those were the only two I noticed in the
Mhm.
city. But sometimes we had, at that point, we had 6 dogs in the house. Only Pearl was immune to the noise. My granddaughter's and son's 5 dogs were just all getting in the same closet together.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pennsylvania, which had a very tight fireworks laws and enforcement than it was enforced. And they would take kids lighting firecrackers at any time of the year to jail with all the parents. That was the standard thing. So the parents didn't like it because, so and it wasn't the cops, it was the stop. I mean, we didn't have many fireworks in Pennsylvania. So,
Yeah, I don't
state
think
action.
these are a lot. These aren't really, I don't see these as being like kids. We've confiscated a few of these that we found in different areas, and some of these are like home built mortars. The other one we've got was, I mean, they're substantial. They cost a lot of money. And like I said, you can't get them locally, so you really have to. I mean, if a parent is going to buy those for a kid, it's like, coming up from Washington or, Nevada or something, but they're pretty substantial to, these are, these have gone beyond just like fireworks. Like a lot of them aren't even fireworks. They're just boom, just mortars.
Well, yeah, it's a type of firework. It's called a report. I had a cousin who used to make them illicitly in his garage a long time ago, and would sell them to folks who would take them off and shoot them off at the beach or things like that. And and yeah, what we're looking at is really professional grade fireworks that are legal in other states that are simply not used here unless you're a licensed fireworks show person who gets hired by a city to shoot them out over the water or whatnot. Trying to control that is without a lot of people on the river
It's
to
impossible.
patrol is pretty much impossible to police.
Because I came from down south, and uh, it was like a war down there.
Mm.
And the police department wouldn't fly their helicopters at night.
Well, yeah,
Because of that.
they have it worse. It's gunfire down in the cities.
Yeah.
It's San Jose, San Francisco,
Yeah.
LA. It's gunfire is their problem. Not so much the illegal fireworks. They have a lot of people just shoot their guns in the air.
Oh, that's silly. You were talking about education, and I was wondering if some kind of notification or posters or something around town closer to the 4th of July, reminding people of the safe and sane fireworks that are allowed, but that the other fireworks are illegal in this town. I mean, I feel like we should do something proactively just to get it out there. And it's not kids. I mean, I was going to say something at the school, but if it's not kids,
Not.
then it needs to be somewhere else. Um, and I would say something, I'm looking at my calendar because the 4th of July is our next firework holiday. And that's, it's far away, but it's something to think about if we can get maybe some posters
Hmm.
to remind people of that around town as we get close, that it's illegal, not having someone enforce it. That's the problem. Any other ideas from commissioners on this subject? Before I open up to the public?
Uh, I'll just tell a story from when I was a kid. We had a neighbor who had an old middle-aged dog, and that was the only dog I've ever seen go toward fire. He hated him. And if it was happening, we lived on a huge 2 square city block lot, and there weren't many homes on it, so there was a lot of room for kids to play and dogs to run. And that dog was incredible. When the fire went off and he burned that tree, he was like, he was sort of barking, he was beat up. He wasn't a mean dog at all. He was very calm and quiet. But when fireworks, he would go and he would chase the people off the surrounding area. Very good, very good that way. I don't think we can get away with it. But big hot dog was really
Any other suggestions before I open up to public? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Rebecca, right back. Somehow, and we would like you to stand up in the microphone. Sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry. Rebecca Collins, I think the education thing is a really good idea. But I think instead of your attitude to anything that's safe and isn't safe, 'cause I was thinking about this before. I think, telling people what it does to people's animals and the horses, because before Mandy and somebody else was talking about that, I didn't realize that my dogs just kind of cuddle up with us, and I don't even think they hear them. But to think of horses out there being really distraught, that, was really upsetting to me. So I think, say, a posters saying something like that, and can't we put it on the water bill to just remind people that they're not, you know, that it really affects people's animals, and go for safe and sane, come up with some little motto and put it in the water bill too.
I think that's a very good idea.
Water bill, yeah.
I like the idea of emphasizing the agony it puts the critters through. I don't see any reason to make the critters suffer.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Marty.
Marty Granger. I've been thinking about this for a couple of months, and I think education is the way to go about it too. So I've come up with a plan. It's got two parts. So the first part is, and you'll understand when I get to the second part, but at 9 o'clock on the 4th of July, I've gotten permission to ring the church bells at the Presbyterian Church at 9 o'clock for 5 minutes. And then the person that I talked to about the Catholic Church said, get in touch with Adeline.
Yeah.
And she will talk to you about it. So I'm hoping that Adeline might be willing to ring the Catholic Church bells at 9 o'clock for 5 minutes. And then I've come up with this flyer. And it says 4th of July plea. It says bells instead of bangs, jingle instead of kindle, chimes instead of crimes, celebrate instead of violate, and harmonize instead of traumatize. And then at the bottom it says, "Thank you from the children, veterans, animals, and all gentle folks."
Here, here, here.
Good.
Well, I was planning to, and I'm also, it's the same thing, but it's New Year's Eve.
Oh,
So I'm making a bunch of flyers to give to every child at the school. And I know kids don't have the power much, but they can be educated and they'll take this flyer home to the parents and we'll see what happens. I've already talked to the principal and she was quite enthusiastic about it.
good.
So I would do this in May or June and then again in December for the 4th of July.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I would think of saturating the Blue Lake jurisdiction with those. That's a lovely little poem you've written. And I think it's catchy enough to change some minds.
right.
So I think we ought to inundate the city with your flyer there.
Would have enough to put around the community too. And I thought I'd give this one to you and that maybe it could go up in City Hall.
Yeah. Um, Mandy, what kind of regulations do we need to have for, I mean, this can just be a person that's handing these out or posting these. It doesn't
Yeah,
really have
yeah.
to be anything that's
No.
sanctioned by the city or
Nope.
anything. Yeah, that's really sweet. And I see why you were trying to get a hold of me now. And that's not a problem at all. Uh, okay,
Elise and Troy.
so please.
So at the council meeting, we talked about possibility of having a citizens task force, and potentially looking into having a few people that are willing to go door to door, or who knows. But getting together and throwing around some ideas, so that folks will really get the word, and maybe it would be walking door to door with the flyer. And I think sometimes, even if you don't have a chance to talk to somebody, if somebody gets something on their door, you know, it gets that they feel maybe a little more uh, aware of what the situation is and the problems. Um, and I know that Aaron McClure, who has horses, has been very active in this issue. And so I was hoping maybe she could team up with Marty and go maybe bring one of her donkeys to the school. And
It's already agreed to do that.
has she?
Say that.
Great, great.
It's willing to take a horse or a donkey down there and talk to the kids about what this does to the
Oh,
animals.
wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
the principal thought that was a great idea too. So that really makes an impression
Mhm.
on the kids.
I think if we had several, many people as we can get handing these things out around their neighborhoods,
Mhm.
it's good to have it neighborly. We could have an effect. Ask people to at least put them in their windows, and
So anyway, and if you guys thought it was worth talking about, getting a group of folks to kind of task force on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I would like to say one thing. Oh, any merit days too, maybe they could just set up a table with some of those flyers and, just.
Yeah.
Make public, I think the public is fully aware of disturbing it is to. And it doesn't have to be very days, it's educational days. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Annual days in August, so it's kind of after. Yeah, no, it's third this year, Sunday. So although it would be after the 4th of July, but it would be a kind of a strange spot to have, but I think all the house. Yeah, right. There you go. People are shopping for Christmas, so they might be thinking about it. Right, lots of good ideas. It's always best to collaborate and come up with things, right? I was thinking of a poster card. I didn't even think it was nice to poster. So thank you. That's great.
yard posters would be really good for that.
What
Yard posters.
yard?
Yeah,
Yard sign.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
If somebody
to enlarge it.
money, I'll throw some bucks into it. I think that'd be one. That goes up, but, yeah. I like the jingle. I think it's great.
That's good. Have a campaign. You could be the leaders of the campaign and ask for donations for signs or, whatever. Kind of brainstorm and see how. Because Marty's willing to spend some of her own money, but it's expensive to print things in color. So, people want to pitch in, that'd be great.
I'd be willing, I think it's worthwhile. I think, Kimmy, my daughter-in-law, lives in the house, and she would be willing. I think we could raise some money. So,
Yeah. Could be more, rather than real wordy, maybe just something really simple, like safe and sane fireworks, 4th of July or something,
I like the jingle.
People like to say when you have a yard sign, something's better to just kind of condense it to some less wordiness. But yeah, people walk around and just stop and read that.
Yeah.
Comfort gadget. It's kind of very catchy. Like it. So, okay, good. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. That,
Reading contest for the kids. It's
see, I
the
used to.
best interpretation of it, it would be, and the kid can get some trinket or something, honor him, on her, I don't know.
Well, I used to ring the bells at 8 o'clock during COVID. I did that for about 4 months until somebody complained about the bell. To the Catholic Church at St. Mary's in Arcata, somebody came to me and said, "You supposed to ring that bell in the light?" There at the time, which it was, and be happy to do that at 9 o'clock. If I'm in town, I think I'll be in town. All right, very good, commissioners. I think we have a plan. We'll move forward.
Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, thank you.
Bradley.
Okay, let's move on to the neighborhood watch program and discussion. And you've got quite a few pieces of information that you included in our packet about neighborhood watch. And
There was one packet available. I don't know if someone took it.
does this go along with the next door item as well? Yes. Yes. Okay. Because let's start the discussion. I have to say that I am on Blue Lake next door, and I've been a little disappointed with it because it's not a lot of Blue Lake.
Mhm.
People from Eureka, McKinleyville, Arcata chime in. I wish they'd have their own.
They do. The problem is that you have to set your filters within Nextdoor, and that's the problem. Why pretty much I don't use Nextdoor is that it says your community, but unless you go in there and exclude Arcata, Eureka, McKinleyville,
That's why I.
all of the other communities, you will see the postings for all of those communities.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
That's the weakness of Nextdoor. I found actually the Facebook, community pages, whether it's the community news or rants and raves or forum or what's happening, to be actually a lot more town specific, where people are reporting things that are going on when they happen. A little bit more user friendly as far as actually talking about Blue Lake. But
So getting back to the neighborhood watch idea, though, how does that dovetail with Nextdoor?
So we have brought Neighborhood Watch to the table for years.
Yeah.
And we just have not picked up any traction with it. Neighborhood Watch really requires neighborhoods to be active and, social with each other. And it's a very connected type of system. And it seems like it's just not something that people were really interested in. We've had Ginger Campbell here multiple times. We've had the sheriff do presentations. We've printed up, tried to get neighborhoods interested. What does seem to have more interest is the neighborhood pods. That's been really successful. But it really takes a neighborhood to, to decide how they, how they want to interact. And so Neighborhood Watch really breaks down if there's no participants. A lot of people go to Nextdoor because a lot of people are looking more for an online tool rather than, knocking literally on their neighbor's door. They'd rather connect, through a text message. So a lot of neighborhoods are using Nextdoor to set up neighborhood specific groups, or they're setting up digital groups, text thread groups amongst themselves so that, they can let each other know, hey, I just saw someone, flipping handles, or hey, just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to be out of town this week, and, kind of keep an eye on my, my property or whatever. So that seems to be more of what people are interested in these days, more so than Neighborhood Watch. And Neighborhood Watch is kind of dropping off across the nation. Like I said, I think, people are just really, really busy. People are getting home late from work, and, there's just not necessarily the neighborhood interactions like we used to see. I know there's a neighborhood, I think there's a Neighborhood Watch still in my neighborhood, like over here, but I've never none of us, no one's ever participated. Um, so, we were asked to bring back information on Neighborhood Watch from the last meeting. Um, but like I said, it's something we've tried to promote at, various times, levels, and just haven't really got any traction. And it's not really something that the city can do. The city can participate and help, um, encourage people or provide information, or maybe even help invest in signage or things. But we can't, really be there to try and organize neighborhoods. That's not a city function. So it really takes people in a neighborhood to do that themselves. But I think, using a platform like Nextdoor, or just a simple text group that you can set up, there's various apps for doing that and making those neighborhood specific. What happens with Nextdoors are usually like Blue Lake Nextdoor. So that's everyone in Blue Lake. And then people start joining as Blue Lake. It's like Facebook, the Facebook page. It's like, it's not just Blue Lakers. It's, all these other people want to join and see. And then pretty soon someone's putting on their yard sale, and then someone else is putting on something else. It's, totally irrelevant because the net, wasn't, put around the actual neighborhood. It was, expanded. So there's definitely ways to refine Nextdoor. But like I said, there's also other apps too that might be available to people.
Does Ginger know about these other apps?
Yeah, we've
No.
talked, Nextdoor is a component of Neighborhood Watch, and it's something that, the sheriff deputies and programs across the nation promote. It's just, it's just taking that, in-person type of interaction to a virtual platform so that people have, that ease of use. The pods we've had, Dot Campbell's come in and talked about the pods. There's some really strong pods up towards like Northfield Terrace area, up around the K Street neighborhoods, around the Tot Lot area. There's a few pods up there that are really strong, and they really started out with planning, like emergency planning, and how would, if something were to happen, how would they as a neighbor help to take care of their neighbor. So a lot of the CERT members are part of the pods as well. And they've, come in and talked about how they started and how they keep it going. And but they're very connected as neighbors, a little more so than, maybe some of the other neighborhoods that we see.
So where's that structure come from? That
They
the
started
idea
it
and this, that they just do
themselves.
it
Yeah, they
themselves,
did. So
Yep, they're all.
just organic.
Mhm.
Yeah, they call themselves neighborhood pods or
Mhm.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
they
they had
actually.
like potlucks and parties, block parties.
They do canning. They,
They do a lot.
they check in on, they know everyone's medical history. They might have, someone in their neighborhood that, maybe is oxygen dependent or whatever. So they really have, built like a resiliency structure for their little group, but it's small. And I think that's probably why it works, because it's not very big. And so it's manageable.
Right.
But it's definitely replicable. But like I said, it really takes those
Neighbors getting
neighbors
together
getting
to do it.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have that connection.
Hmm.
And some people still have neighborhood watch signs out on
Hmm.
their front yards. I think Jean Lynch has one, and she came to the church one time when we used to have 4 o'clock mass there. Was
Hmm.
asking because we would be part of her neighborhood, the
Hmm.
church there.
Yeah.
And so she was asking about a contact number, which I gave her mine. But because we did have a case where somebody fell during mass. Um, but so the CERT folks, they are connected with the pod as well, or they're just there for support?
No, it kind of started with some of the certain members helped to start the pods. And so
Okay.
they were very interested in community resiliency and building those capacities. So they started thinking about, if the CERT team, was starting to kind of build their skill sets when it came to like how to shut off a gas line,
Mm.
how to triage something, and they kind of started pulling that together on like how would they help each other and spread that information and education. And it started just like I said, kind of built more around community resiliency. They even have like they've stored food, even, they do
Mm.
canning together. And um, so you know checking in on each other, knowing what medications people need, or so um, but
'Cause we
yeah,
have
it
a
was.
very active CERT group
Hmm.
in Blue Lake.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, depending on where they all live, they could almost be the point people if we wanted to organize something in that way. Any ideas from commissioners as to what to do about this idea?
It
Or open
sounds
it up to the public?
4 of the homes on Wall Street here in the block with the fire station have been doing that for years. I mean, Barb and Bobby and I, and now Rick across the street, and Marlene and Elaine next door to Rick. And those 4 households have a relationship where we tend to keep some people aware of when we leave the property for a length of time, or what to expect. And when one day Barb's dog was going nuts next door, really barking for a long time, and I went next door and knocked. And it turned out she wasn't feeling well, but she was all right. But she was very thankful that somebody checked at that point. And so that's what we tend to do in the neighborhood there, and look after the other's dogs and all of that. So it's kind of pod-like with
Mhm.
what we're talking about, but it's still very informal. I mean, it's very informal. But it'd be easy to do there. I was thinking that it would be actually the block thing, that your real neighbors. As you get 2 blocks away and so on, it's a different thing. So
Yeah, and you really have to have, the scope and reach of a neighborhood watch is very limited because
mhm.
it can't be it's really like line of sight, because what's the point of being part of a neighborhood watch that you can't see what's going on, So it is a limited scope and reach. And that's, I think, also what makes it a little bit more feasible if people are into it, because it's not so many people and you're not reaching out and looking after so many houses or things. Um, it also requires, that people in your neighborhood are around. Blue Lake is pretty there's a lot of neighborhoods in Blue Lake, during the day, everyone leaves to go to work. There might not be anyone, even around to look after things. But I don't know. It seems that, there's definitely been a change in the way neighborhoods interact with each other. And, just like I said, even just on my street, there's people I don't even know. I'm like, we don't have any interaction with each other because everyone's just busy. You're going to work in the mornings and you're passing coming home and you might wave because they're your neighbor, but
Yeah.
people.
Mm.
So
Yeah, if there's a buy-in.
I think the idea of using your CERT people as kind of an organic um, structure to try to encourage it. You can't force anything, but to actually go to those people because emergency preparedness is definitely, you know, talking with your people beforehand and not just waiting until the last minute till something goes wrong. Execute something is it seems like the CERT would be an organic asset use to encourage that. And it doesn't have to be necessarily crime fighting, but just that community preparedness
Yeah,
for emergencies.
yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. I don't know. I know Lynn Glenn is in CERT. I know a few people. There are almost quite a few, in separate areas of town. I mean, if they could almost be the point people that, but I would hate to give them responsibilities, without talking with them. And I don't know if they
Well, no,
meet regularly.
They do. They do
Uh-huh.
their regular meetings and their regular trainings. I mean, the other side of it is, you just have to have some interest.
Mhm.
And we haven't had any. Like I said, we've tried this for a number of years to try and get people interested and find people in neighborhoods that might be a point person and put it out on social media. We've had the deputies. We tried to do like a safety talk at the town square one time with the deputies that came, and we handed out, even like lights and vests and things for safety when you're walking, and tried to get some community walking groups together. Stephanie Dickinson worked really hard to try and, get that when we were having some issues with, some vandalism and some petty theft, trying to get walking groups in the evening and in the mornings. And she just, I mean, she tried really hard
Mhm.
and she ended up doing a lot of walking by herself. But we just couldn't get the buy-in. So
Yeah, I know, Alex, you did that with clipboards. Folks were out in the downtown area years ago when there was vandalism going on. And even if you didn't really even take names or do
Mhm.
anything, just the fact you were standing around with a clipboard
Yeah,
made you look a little professional or scary. I don't know what the idea was there. I know. Well, it was supposed to be a deterrent more than anything.
Official.
Yeah, official is a better word. Um, well, I know I feel frustrated. On the other hand, I haven't done a whole lot in my own neighborhood.
So I heard, and I know this was since our last meeting, but I don't know when that time frame. That there was a night vandalism through town, but it only caused by one person.
Oh, yeah.
That 2 or 3 homes along Wall Street were hit, one pretty seriously,
hmm
and on the inside and so on. And the guy was caught,
hmm
and he turned out to be the one who did the post office too.
yeah.
But, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And then we had the graffiti that happened in the library window, and then that occurred. Was it the same person that did that?
No, that's a different person.
Yeah,
But yeah, we got that guy too.
got that guy too. But
It was
there were some ways that that got out as well through the Facebook site that worked, and people had a picture from somewhere, and
Yep.
so it's kind of working, but not in any real organized sense.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have a name, Neighborhood Watch.
But there was the prowler over by the Grange. It was photographed and it got interviewed by the sheriff's department
Oh, good.
and escorted back to Eureka where he belonged.
Mm.
But that happened as well between the last meeting and now. So people are definitely doing it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
doing the job. It seems. I guess let the organic flow and talk to CERT and see if they have any ideas or if they, if what if they're even interested.
Well, talking about the successes helps,
Yeah.
and it's really good to get those two where it gets out to that criminal community that ain't like you don't want to go there.
Mm.
You know,
And
you know,
it's the residents. I mean, there's ways to protect your home. There's anymore. There's cameras. There's things like that you put on your house.
Ocean lights.
Motion lights,
Mhm.
and they're fairly cheap.
Yeah, we actually did a walk around Blue Lake at night and identified all the properties that had dark spaces that had visibility issues and dead spaces, and then worked with the sheriff's department, and then just through a small grant from the city, we went out and worked with residents, worked with them to get lighting, um, talked about cameras. We have a camera program where we've several sets of cameras out in the community, um, in strategic locations, and just trying to get those so that if something does happen, we can say, hey, we've got a set of cameras at by the footbridge, and
Yeah.
let's go get the footage and stuff. But we ran into a little bit of resistance with people too, that were a little like, I don't want to be like Big Brother, like I don't want camera, and areas that we felt like we did need cameras. We couldn't find anyone to sponsor those because we need Wi-Fi and stuff and be able to download and
Yeah,
so
there's
it was
First
kind of
Amendment
interesting.
issues
Yeah.
there, I guess.
Yeah.
We have
And then,
privacy.
we had people who just really wanted us to come in and like, do all the work for them, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you can
not
come in, but you got to install them. And I was like, oh gosh, like, but I mean, a lot of people took advantage of it and were, liked the ideas that were brought forward and had never really thought about like what their property really looks like at night. It's like, oh wow, it really is actually really dark. And if someone could just walk into my driveway and flip my handle or whatever. So, those opportunities to just provide more education, but it really does come down to people, being proactive on their own properties as well, having lighting and deterrence. But stuff happens. I had a guy just a couple weeks ago walked into on our property, and we have a pretty long driveway, and walked right all the way to the back and took a gas can and left. And my aunt came out and yelled at him and chased him, and we called the sheriff, and they ended up finding him right at the casino and arrested him, and we pressed charges. And
Well, that was you.
so
That
yeah,
was on social media too.
yeah,
Stolen gas can.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, um, but it's if she hadn't been aware of it, happening, but also a lot of people don't turn things in or, don't press charges or whatever. So, but that guy was a pretty well-known criminal from Eureka area that had just gotten out of jail, and it was pretty flagrant to walk all the way up to past my house, and take that in broad. It was 8:30 in the morning. So, but
Yeah, my
interesting.
art for a pickup I had, this was a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, was ripped off Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Got in, started up, and the door to look at, I think somebody just took your truck and tear it up. We caught him 2 days later in McKinleyville.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
was
most of what we see is crimes of opportunity. But
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment on this item? Marty?
I really like the idea of the neighborhood watch, but I think it is old fashioned between technology and COVID and politics. I think it's time to take the responsibility away from you folks and to put it on personal responsibility for everyone to have a little 3 or 4, 5, 6, 2, whatever. Have those people in town. That's what I've done. I have 3 or 4 people, and it's really come in handy a few times for me and then for other people too. So I'd like to see people become more responsible themselves and take it out of your hands. You can just encourage people to do it on their own.
Well, I think encouraging is something we're here to do, and I'm bending my mind as we're speaking, trying to figure out how to put these ideas into words, recommendations to people, and have them internalize it. I mean, I'm a great believer in dog. Okay, I'm a great believer in dog, and but that's a personal preference. You know,
I like my motion lights myself.
uh,
And they're solar powered, so
Yeah.
they just click
I've
on
got
and
like about 4 of them around
I
here
do. I have 4 on every corner practically, and they
by
click
the
on.
gates down in the back alley side.
Mhm.
So it's,
And it helps me when I go home at night after meetings and stuff too. It clicks on and
yep.
helps me get where I need to go with my bicycle. Any other public comment? Elise?
I know that a lot of people aren't kind of predisposed to reaching out to neighbors, and especially now with so much electronic communication, I think maybe people are even less likely to do that. So if there were some sort of organized effort made to help people connect, maybe that would make a difference. I mean, I know it's upon all of us to get to know our neighbors and be aware of what's going on and know what to do if we see something that seems wrong. But I think having an organized, effort uh, to get people connected might be the catalyst that folks need to get to that place. So I'd hope that we wouldn't completely discount that
Along those
possibility.
lines, I've been thinking of a block party for our block.
Mhm.
We discuss all these things.
Mhm.
And I know it happened 20 years ago or so in that block for us. And it was a very nice event and so on. And it was made almost like an annual thing to get together, have a block party, hand out the leaflets, the information that you have, and do a social scene, do it through a social scene. I think people are more receptive to it. Yeah.
Mhm. Alex. Okay, back to commission for any further input on this item. We'll just proceed as I will talk to Lynn Glenn from CERT and see um, when they meet and just kind of discover what kind of structure they have as far as getting in touch with people. And I mean, do they actually know like the names and numbers of the older folks in our town? That might be helpful, just to kind of, I know that's again
I doubt
the
it.
First Amendment
Yeah.
privacy issue, but we have some people that are getting up there in town and they especially need to be
hmm
checked on. What is that
Yeah.
called when
I
they
don't.
check on people? There's a name for that. Um,
Old age.
oh no, it's called safety check or something like that.
Welfare checks.
Yeah,
Welfare
welfare
check,
check,
yeah.
but not the one that you get in the mail.
Corporate, where people can subscribe and they get a call every day.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Call and then somebody comes to check on them.
yeah, right, yeah,
That requires the individual to be.
To set it up.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. And then there's people that wear those little necklaces that have the alarm that way. So yeah, yeah, I need,
First alert,
yeah, mm-hmm, welfare checks,
there's life alert.
life alert, yeah. All right. Let's move on then to Humboldt County Sheriff Call Data Review Discussion and Recommendations. This was also part of our packet.
I didn't have a time to look through this one.
Mhm.
So
I noticed again that it's showing up that areas like the Hatchery Road area, but it seemed like most of it was in town from what I could tell.
Yeah, this is just the report I get from Margaret. And they didn't provide we got one report that they had their analysts kind of compile the data just specifically for Blue Lake, but I haven't received that. I put in a couple of requests for it, but I haven't seen that type of report come back through. So I'm not sure if they're just short staffed or if they're not what the status is of that. So this is just their normal report that they provide, and it does have the larger area of sphere of influence.
Right.
But
And remind me, is Casino Way, is that considered in the city of Blue Lake?
no, that's
Yeah,
literally
that would
like
be the
They're Rancheria.
in their
Rancheria.
Yeah,
it's in
okay,
the
so then
casino
that
area.
is out of the area. Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
there's
I
quite a
think
few
when
of
I
those.
saw that Margaret had put dots next to
Oh,
like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
Blue Lake
Mhm,
addresses, because
mhm.
that's normally I usually go through and highlight them, but she'd already put the little dots there. So
oh, okay.
Okay, that's what that meant. Good. Mhm. Okay, well, again, I mean, this is data that can be shown as far as, where the crimes are happening, but also that, again, it looks like,
Well,
less than half of them are in town here.
right.
or
Specifically
state.
in town. I mean, you would want to consider, I would imagine you want to consider the folks on Blue Lake Boulevard as technically part of town because they're right along that corridor that, right across the street from town.
Yeah,
Gas station there with all those homes that are on that side. Um, but you also you have just not crimes, you have medicals and just, you have other just
mhm,
contact things
mhm.
here.
Good point. Yeah. Well, it's a sphere of influence thing too, as well, but,
Right.
it's just something to think about when it's time to contract with the sheriff. Did you want to make any remarks about the report?
It's pretty standard. You know, a lot of it's just, you know, CAD docs. So that's just a lot of their check-in points. You know, I didn't really see anything that stands out that's, you know, anything that seemed alarming. Um,
What does that mean, CAD document?
CAD docs will have, you know, a specific location that they check in at on their, in their reporting system to be like, you know, they usually do one like through the park, down on Taylor Way,
Oh.
different areas so they can
Oh.
show that they're in the area. Um, we've asked them to do specific checks in specific areas
Good.
to make
Sure.
sure that those aren't. So they actually will have them
Log in.
programmed into their system that they have to check in. So,
Okay, good.
but yeah, you'll see a lot, you know, a lot of them transfer to medical, transfer to CHP, you know, field interviews, um, not
Do,
a lot of stuff going on.
do you guys keep an incident map at all in the city hall?
No, because it's online. So Citizen Rims has all the information.
I see. Yeah.
So you can just pull it up.
Any other remarks from commissioners?
No.
Anyone from public?
We would just like to request that we have a couple packets on the table for folks out here to take a look at, because we're all just here listening to you talk, but we can't see what you're listening to.
There was one back. I picked it up because I haven't quite used my phone, I guess, but I just got it on my phone. Well, I appreciate seeing these. We used to see these when I was on the council, and I wondered where they were going now. It's okay too. See if we're getting information out there. All right, we'll move on then to agency and program check-ins. The Humboldt County Sheriff. Did you want to report on that? I think you're in negotiations right now with the sheriff about our new contract. Is that
Yeah, so the council actually approved the contract amount. So right now we're just working through contract language. And I talked about that. I think I updated you last time. It's in indemnification language.
Yeah.
So that's ongoing.
I'm glad to see that resolution.
Yeah.
if there, we're getting redone that contract as well, $20,000. That's that's coming. So it's lower than the 100. Blue Lake Fire, since you're on the fire department, what's any updates on that?
Yeah, so we are pretty low on the numbers. So, we've got a few people in the academy right now graduating late next week. We've got a lot of Coast Guard kids who are participating in our program. It's great. They're really enthusiastic and young, and so it's always nice to have around. The problem is, you know, they don't live in the district, so they have to do duty shifts. So, you know, they might be here for 8 hours, and you know, so that's great if they can respond. But we really need volunteers in our community. It's it's going to be a continuing issue. We have very few responders in town that can regularly respond. I would say less than, probably have like 5 or 6. Um, so it's a huge issue. The biggest barrier, obviously, is housing. Um, you know, not having places for younger uh, recruits to go to or younger families. You know, as we're seeing kind of the aging of our community population, it really is having that, you know, that impact on things like volunteer groups and fire is a big one where we see that hit because it's not something that a lot of people want to, you know, retire at, you know, 68 years old and then join a fire department, you know, and be like, sure, I need to like pack hoses and, you know, it really is, you know, kind of that, you know, that younger, generation that we really need to focus on because it's a lot of work. You know, we have about 400 calls a year. A lot of them are mutual aid calls. A lot of them, you know, we get halfway out and get canceled. But there's days where we have, I've ran 5 calls in a day, and you're just like, my gosh, this is a lot. The calls come in at 2 a.m. and, you got to, wake yourself up and go like, shoot, I might be the only one getting there, or just a couple of us. And, we're running singles on calls, which it's always really scary. Luckily, we have really good mutual aid partners. But a lot of our mutual aid partners are in the same boat too. You have Fieldbrook and West Haven and stuff, and, they're not paid houses. So, we're all relying on those people that are willing to step up and make that commitment. So, um, hopefully, I don't know what will change. Cal Poly's got a really cool fire science program, and we've picked up a couple of kids through that. So we have a couple of students through that program, um, and they actually do duty shifts at the station more often. And then we just picked up another resident who's a student. And he's also doing the cadet program at Humboldt Bay and the EMT program. So it's great, he's there, but he's gone most of the time, but it is nice to have people there. So it really definitely is a concern and something that we'll need to talk about and think about because the call volume's not going down. Um, and as we have, an aging population, we get a lot of medicals. So, something to really think about, as we're looking for opportunities in our community. So anyone who comes in to set up new water service, I always give them the spiel, would you like to be a firefighter? Like it's not all about burning buildings and, all these things, but we really could use the help. So, but we're making it happen. We make sure we respond every time the siren goes off. So, but yeah,
So the
It's
fire
twice
chief,
today.
what's that?
Said it was twice today.
Yep, yep.
so the fire chief is on a salary,
We
but
have one paid position.
that's all you have is the
Mhm.
one paid.
hmm
So the rest of these folks are volunteers.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a $10 a call stipend to, help with gas.
Sure. All.
So,
Hmm.
and it's a lot, we put in a lot of training. We meet every single Tuesday. We train every Tuesday and, um, and then there's weekend trainings and then there's special trainings. We'd have to do all of our emergency medical trainings. Those are, can be 18 to 24-hour trainings and driver trainings and all the certs and you've got to do all the same things that basically a paid station has to do. We're responding to all the same types of calls and expected to do the same level. We don't have any paramedics and we don't have the authorities to do anything at that level. We're just below an EMT, but you've we're the first ones on scene, so we do a lot of triaging and a lot of scene stabilization
Until an ambulance
until the
gets
ambulance
there.
gets there. Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm wondering there if there's some outreach that we can do.
Yeah, the fire department, does a lot of recruiting. We do some recruitment up at, like I said, the colleges.
Because CR has a program too, but of course
That's a
that's
CAL
even
FIRE
further.
program, yeah. And we do a lot of CAL FIRE. We've got 3 CAL FIRE firefighters, um, which is great, but it's also terrible because they leave
Right.
when the
Yeah.
season starts. So we just lost,
Yeah.
our main resident, Jarrell. He's a seasoned CAL FIRE engineer, so he's pretty much gone now. So they're all doing their research and everything right now. So, and then we have another CAL FIRE captain who is actually stationed in Napa. So he goes down for 4 days and then comes up and goes back and forth. So we'll probably be losing some more during the summer if we put together maybe possibly a strike team. Strike teams are also what makes money for the department too, to help pay for equipment and stuff. So if we can send an engine out on a wildland fire, we can get paid. Our engine gets paid, so that all comes back to the department and helps. Because those engines are really expensive. A new Type 1's like $1 million. It's very hard to replace
Yeah.
those. So But yeah, we really need the people in town that live here. You know, um, it's nice. You know, we encourage our city staff to be volunteers. So we have two, myself and then Rosie, who works here in the morning. We're both on the volunteer fire department. Um, and the city's always encouraged employees to be on the fire department because we're the only ones in town a lot of times.
Yeah,
You know, so
like city staff too.
yeah, and
But
we did have our parks director used to be on the fire department. Alex used to be in the fire department.
Scotty, Mike
Scotty.
Taylor,
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. So that's
And
always
there were
been kind of
sometimes we were the only three answering the
Bob
call.
Giroux
Yeah.
used to
Mhm.
think with the
Yeah.
fire department.
Yeah, Bob was a
Bob
big part of the
Giroux,
fire
right,
department.
Yeah,
right. And he came, yeah.
yeah, I didn't think about that. That is the other way to get.
Yeah.
Well, I have two very healthy granddaughters. And you see it. Yeah, well, they don't listen to grandpa. Okay. They do not listen to grandpa. Grandpa's the enemy. So you don't
Tell
want me asking that.
You just tell 'em, I don't want whatever you do. I don't want you to become fire.
I'll try it. Say works.
Well, we don't.
I don't have other reasons for that.
And you live right next door to the fire department, so there's so
Well, the thing is that we had it in our bedroom for 10 years. I mean, and Harold Phoenix lived just up the block, and he and I were gone before anybody else was there.
Yeah.
Over and over again, I walked into some scene. I was in EMT. I walked into some scenes. I have nothing but respect for firemen, and particularly the volunteers. And it's really an unselfish act. And it ain't easy work. It ain't easy work.
Yeah. Definitely been exposed to some stuff that I really thought I would ever
Oh, boy, howdy.
see. Well, if there's anything we can do at our end to help, since recruit
or get the word out to people. I understand your comments about the housing, and that
Housing
is
is
such an
bad.
issue. Absolutely, it
Yeah,
affects
I mean,
It's a
everybody.
huge issue.
working the kids, can't afford housing like anymore. I mean, it's
There's just no housing. There's nothing available.
what is available is
It's unaffordable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest issue of the time myself.
Ken Swatsky, who was in numerous times, and said that he has a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom apartment that he would reserve for firefighters at a low rate if there were folks looking for housing.
well, good for Ken. Good. Well, Rick Willis was in negotiating with some for a while, but it seemed to have fallen through.
Yeah, I think it's just so expensive. It's
Yeah, yeah.
we have to be working full time, and if you want to be called at 2 a.m. in the morning, if you have to get up at 7 for your clear. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, you have to have a job that's employer sympathetic to that sort of thing, and not all of them are.
Well, actually, they were when they were ruling businesses.
I'm sure.
The Fire Trading Place was down there. Forget Margarita, whatever the white. I don't remember the name of the guy. Mayberry. Yeah, right. And then he sometimes working for him that were allowed to go on fire calls.
Yeah.
So, we would always have 5, 6 guys during the day. We worked weekdays when we were all working, ready to go. But once again, that's locals, and when you have locals, you all face the same problem. So we tend to cooperate. It was, but I had to stop when I was 55. I was carrying a semi go off the road. The guy, he was driving a full load of trees. And going over the hill, but the first thing on 299 going east. What is the name of that peak there anyway? He lost his brakes coming down to where the bridge goes across the Mad River out there. And there's a line of cars waiting because they were doing work on the bridge one lane at a time. There's a line of cars in front of him. And he took that truck and took it off the road. And he cut across the up lane out there going east and went down. And he saved him just man. down, and he survived, but he was banged up. I had to go in the cab and help him out. And then we put him in the stretcher and started carrying him up. And I got about 2/3 of the way up, and I just had to pass that thing. I mean, he was a big guy, and
Mhm.
55, I was
Yeah.
losing it. So
Yeah, you have to be
It's a lot.
yeah,
young
So I
and
like to just do medicals.
yeah.
healthy.
And I'm too short to like get everything off the engine anyway. So I got to reach the hoses. So someone else has to do it.
Well, again, if we can do anything to help in some way recruiting folks, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, spread the
More
word.
businesses in town. I mean, the Mad River Brewery, but you know, there's not that many businesses in town that have.
Yeah.
many
Like you said, it's a lot, you know, it really takes that local person too, you know, that so yeah, it's rewarding. It's great. It's I love it.
Yeah, you have to have a good feeling for it as well. Um, is there anyone from the audience that would like to talk about the Blue Lake Fire Department issue? All right, and we'll move on then to Blue Lake Rancheria Office of Emergency Services.
Yeah, we don't have any reports or from Red Cross.
Okay. All right, reports from Public Safety Commission liaison and staff, I Street traffic calming. I had put that on because we had talked about doing something on that road. We had a temporary pop-up roundabout, which had mixed reviews, I guess, I don't know. We've talked about four-way stops at a few of those spots, but they're not warranted, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, we don't have the warrants necessary to be able to substantiate the stop signs, this four-way. You have to be able to substantiate it so that in the event of an accident, you have the basically the backup documentation to show that it's a warranted installation, that you're not creating a hazard, trying to prevent a hazard. It's kind of ridiculous in some ways, but it is something that, you know, the engineers and stuff take pretty seriously because it goes on their stamp to be able to justify those installations. I did print for you guys excerpt from our local road safety plan.
Oh,
And this is just portions of it. I have the full document, but uh, so I remember a few years ago, the city did a local road safety plan. If you guys want to hear this,
Excellent.
um,
Somebody-
this was kind of a the reason we did this project was road projects are really,
I
really
like that
expensive.
window.
Green Road was almost
This one.
permitting engineering, everything. Um, and so the local road safety plan is really an opportunity to look at lower cost installations in your community to make more significant impacts. Things like mini roundabouts, maybe it's the installation of safety bollards, maybe it's different striping. You know, you can do chicanes in the road or bulb outs or things that just aren't require you to bring it to the roadway that can have a significant impact to slow down traffic.
Speed
So
bumps.
speed bumps are another one, absolutely. Yeah. You know, raised crosswalks, lighting, there's a whole host of opportunities. So we, we've done several studies around the community. We did a big walk, safety walk for the school, for safe routes to school, put a lot of time and effort into that. We did a safety walk from, from like Logger down Hatchery all the way to the West End Junction to look at that area. You know, we obviously did all the studies on Greenwood and then, you know, the rest of the truck route. We also looked at areas of that had impacts that were documented, like the boulevard. We've had, you know, we've had a fatality and we've had some other documented incidents. Part of our problem in Blue Lake is we, you know, we don't have a lot of collisions. We don't have a lot of reported traffic accidents. You know, we have a lot of near misses. We have a lot of people speeding. We have a lot of people doing things, but they're not documented. So it becomes really hard to try and extrapolate that information into a data set that like supports, you know, some type of application. So this process allowed us to kind of do this a little differently. We use Street Story, which is a way for people to just, you know, tell you know, uh, their situations or tell stories about, you know, like, hey, I almost got hit crossing the street, you know, by the post office. Someone, you know, ran right through, or, you know, my dog got hit on Hartman, and, you know, things that aren't going to get recorded into a database, but they're still really, you know, important information for us to look at safety of areas. So we're able to use that data, which is normally not really allowed to be used in a lot of your like Caltrans projects and things, but local road safety plan allows that type of information to come into play and to be utilized in a way that can also help you go for different funding resources. So we did a lot of community outreach surveys. We did extrapolate data from CHP and the sheriff. We did community interviews. We did, you know, just some traffic walks. We had people, you know, just kind of sit in areas and kind of do observations and report. So, and that all that data was compiled and put into a local road safety plan. And we started to identify like where are some of our hot spots that are having issues, and like what are some of the lower impact, lower cost um, you know, kind of low hanging fruit type of improvements that we could make to kind of deal with it. So I Street was definitely part of that whole discussion. The G Street, Hartman was another one. So we've kind of identified, you know, Greenwood was kind of our main emphasis because we had that project, and then we're starting to kind of move, you know, into areas. We put some speed bumps in different areas and things, but we've now kind of concentrating on G Street and I Street as kind of our spring summer look at what we can do. What are some options, and so we can pull from the local road safety plan and look at some of those identified improvements and start seeing where they might be applied. We do have a grant through HCOG right now for the G Street mini roundabout. And so we've been out doing a little bit of, you know, engineering, preliminary engineering, looking at the best way, because it's just a real high speed zone. People cut through there. You know, we need to overlay the road, but that's going to make people go even faster. Um, you know, we've had dogs hit, we've had kids almost hit. It's, you know, the kids come off the Ped Bridge right there. So you know, but it's such a high use because everyone goes to the post office. And so a lot of people use it, cut over to the boulevard or cut into town and come down it. So thinking about the G Street to Hartman section, since we do have that small HCOG grant to do an installation, and then maybe being able to apply that up to I Street. But I Street also has some other opportunities. It's so wide. There's a lot you can do with it. You know, you can do some different parking in different sections. You can do signage. You can do things to kind of narrow the focus of that road so it doesn't feel as big, because that's part of it. People get really comfortable in a big wide open stretch, you know, and so they don't realize they're going 30 miles an hour, you know, right by the tot lot, you know. So trying to kind of neck that down so people, you know, feel a little bit more confined is is a tool that's used really regularly and is very successful in its application. So we're just kind of finishing up a couple of projects, and our plan is, like I said, this spring and then moving into summer to really focus on those those are our two focus streets to look at improvements. So I wanted to provide you guys with this information so you just kind of get a feel for what some of the options are. Like I said, these are really focused on lower cost installation, so we don't have to say, oh gosh, now we got to go out and compete for $1.2 million.
Right.
You know, it's like, hey, we could do this maybe with our street budget this year. You know, we get a little bit of street funds. Maybe we say, hey, let's put aside $20,000, you know, to this because we, you know, it's something affordable and reasonable.
I have a safety issue, traffic safety issue. Driving west on Bull Lake Boulevard, as you come to the roundabout out there,
Mhm.
and you try to catch cars coming north on Charlton. There are three bushes underneath the tree that stands out on the corner. Actually, there are three bushes that blank the angle from the coming this way and going north on Charlton. Blocks that angle out, so you have to catch the car coming up, or if you're on the boulevard, you have to catch the car coming up north on Charlton about 20, 30 feet down from the corner. And then you lose sight of that car until he comes out and you converge there. Now, twice in February, March, I had, they weren't close. I mean, there was still 5, 6 feet between us. But had I been a reckless driver instead of a cautious old fart, I would have been going faster and it would have been closer. So those bushes, I would recommend. There's three of them. At least two of them should go and plant. The greenery planted somewhere else because it's a serious obstruction to the vision of those two converging vehicles.
You know, the rancheria is responsible for the maintenance of that.
No, this is on our corner. This is on our corner. Our corner. This is on our corner.
Are you talking about where the sign is?
Out in front of the sign.
Okay, that's the school
Is-
property.
The tree goes up, and the tree that's out in front towards the corner of that property, and underneath it are these three large hedge-like bushes,
Okay.
and they just cut off that angle, which is a decent angle. If they weren't there, you'd see the vehicle all the way through. You know to slow down, or it would
It's
be
the school
obvious.
property.
This way, you're blind for that, and then they pop out, and so it's a problem waiting to happen.
Getting back to I Street, have we talked about speed humps along that area, or is that?
I think it's
This is
so
a
big.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It almost seems like it would be perfect for a roundabout, a mini roundabout like what you had there. On the other hand, where the tot lot is, it's almost too close to Blue Lake Boulevard to have a little roundabout there, although it makes perfect sense because you want the children to be able to go safely to their
Right.
little tot lot. If anybody uses that, I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I picture High Street being this really beautiful little, like, you know, planted, I mean, it's such a pretty area. The
Yeah,
houses are really pretty. There's so much you could do with it
I know.
to make it so it's not just this big, long, straight stretch,
Maybe even like a
center planting,
center, yeah,
yeah.
center plantings of
Like Dolores
trees.
Avenue in San Francisco.
And
Yeah, you
I
could
think
You
it would
have palm
really be
trees running
pretty.
down the middle of the street.
Yes,
It's
palm
beautiful.
trees.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
But we're a little cold, yeah.
not palm trees necessarily, but something. I mean, those trees in the roundabout have not grown very much, and they've been there for a long time. I don't
Yeah.
know what type of tree that is. It's pretty cool,
Redwoods.
huh?
They're redwoods in the round.
They're redwoods, but they're not getting any bigger though. They're
Yeah,
doing
I don't
really
know. I
They
didn't
stunted.
anticipate that they were gonna stay apparently. So
on some
they're like
redwoods.
gonna tear up and some up.
Yeah.
So what?
Did it happen? Um, so I Street, you already said that you have some ideas about what to do with that, and
We did a lot of work looking at I Street and just process, talked to a lot of community members and neighbors and stuff. And we're never gonna agree completely on anything. It's like the city has to make,
Just sit on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And um, for the city, it's really we have to look at safety and, we're not gonna make everyone happy, but,
Mhm.
You can never make everybody
no,
happy.
no,
no.
not
I
all-
think it's such a blank slate because
Yeah.
it's so big and there's so many opportunities to do stuff. Like I said, we're really limited because we're just, good at piecing it together. So the idea is kind of to come up with an overall plan and then see what we can actually, start to implement and what makes the most impact and, most immediate impact, and then maybe work towards other installations and stuff. The other thing, we have big events. That's a great place for people to park up there too. We can maximize parking all the way up. Um, First up to I with some diagonal parking. And that also is a great way to kind of make the bed seem smaller, even though it's nothing to the size of the driveway. It just makes people feel like, it's less open. So just like on Greenwood, we did the same thing. It's like did the fold out the same way as the car there. It makes you feel like, oh, there's something, but it's not taking up any more of the roadway than is, if a car was parked. So some of those, like I said, those visual impacts can make a huge impact in slowing down traffic.
Yeah.
It's an area that's received, there's a lot of neighborhood up there, a lot of people coming to work, and as we start to slow down traffic in other areas, we start to see people trying to find those quicker routes, which seems ridiculous in Blue Lake. But the fact that anyone would try and take a shortcut through a neighborhood like that to try and get out faster is, I don't know how much time is saved anyone, but apparently that's a real thing. So um, there's a lot of concerns up there. Lots of kids, lots of, the top lot and stuff. That really helps.
Yeah, well, part and from what I understand, what Karen Hessler was telling me, and she grew up here, it was like a little dirt path. That's why it's such a small road there from like Mrs. Mattingly's house to Blue Lake Boulevard, that stretch especially.
You have to
According to
make that
Karen,
one way.
that was just a dirt,
Yeah.
that was just a dirt path that they used to use because the school used to be right there where Mattingly house is, right in the schoolhouse subdivision. Yeah,
That
that's
will
what, but it
definitely,
wasn't even a street, and then the city, I guess, then people started to use it as a street, and then the city paved it.
yeah,
Um,
it'll have to be turned into a one-way coming in. Part of it is that during this process, you don't have good line of sight to be able to exit onto the boulevard. And the county is, really does not want visible places of industrial tourist vacation coming to the boulevard and Hartman to that have been flagged that they're going to change to only coming in.
Coming in.
Yeah, which will help. That'll take a lot
That'll
of
take a lot
people
of traffic
there.
off and speed.
Yeah, so that'll be helpful too.
yeah, but then that will put them more on I Street, which brings us back to the idea
Or
that we need to
Greenwood,
do,
where we
yeah, or Greenwood, but we already, Greenwood's looking good. What we need to do is look at I Street and figure out some configurations for how to calm the traffic there. Yeah. Maybe the diagonal parking would help. I mean, I think it's working really well at the post office, and people seem to be happy about that. Yeah, it's increased the amount of parking that you can have there. But then for beautification purposes, tending towards some middle stretch or of trees or a roundabout, which of course I love, but not everybody loves roundabouts. Anyway, keep us informed about that.
I will
That's good.
definitely be bringing back some ideas and getting some feedback and stuff as we go along.
Any other comments from commissioners before I open it to public? Any public input on any of the issues, Elise? We're on I Street traffic calming.
Right. More than a year ago, at one of these meetings that I attended, there was a big discussion about I Street. And there had been door hangers left for a number of a lot of residents on I and H streets. And so there was a lot of good feedback. A lot of folks let the commission know what they felt about I Street. So I think before a plan goes forward, some of that should be revisited. I'm not sure, and maybe Justin, do you recall if that was a recorded meeting?
It probably wasn't.
2 years, so.
It probably was.
Oh, 2
It
years?
probably
Okay.
was. And
Oh,
so
nice.
maybe it would be a good idea. I'll try to find the date and then share that. And so what I do recall was that there were some requests made and those included no on a roundabout, yes on a stop sign, and yes on speed limit signs. There are actually no speed limit signs on all of I Street. And so it's kind of hard to accuse people of speeding if they don't know what the speed limit is, if it's not posted. So that was a big one. And And so it seems to me, I mean, a lot of people were pretty down on some of the suggestions for traffic calming. Of course, Ruben Ledesma, who sits on his porch and reads books and yells at people, um, he told me that he actually gets out there when he sees somebody coming too fast. He'll actually get out there in the street and wave a stick around and slow him down. Anyway, pretty funny guy, but he can't be out there all the time, so he's not slowing everybody down. But that is that's my thoroughfare because I live near there, and I've been driving up and down that street for over 35 years. So um um anyway, I'm going long, but anyway, I think it would be really helpful to listen to the people, watch that video, and see what folks really had to say about it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what base that was. Wasn't for these. And, through that, I live on the corner H at first, and from my second story house, I watch everybody run the stop sign all day long. I've seen the little kids that live up the street almost get hit by cars, and they don't stop. They just come to that stop sign, take a quick look, and
Versus correct.
all day long on the corner, First and 8th Street, right below the cop, up from the post office. And then the other place, I walk a lot. And I sat down on the bench in front of the museum and I watched 50 cars and 25 of them ran the stop sign there. And the one lady came around the corner and almost hit a little boy on his bike. And those are stop signs, and people do not use them in town. And it amazes me. And right there now at the museum, I was going to talk to Cynthia because the bushes have grown up so much. And you can't, when you're coming around this way, you can't, the people don't see you. And they come up there too, right by the museum. They do this rolling stop it right through. And the other problem is on Mount Hatchery, where they put all the places to cross the street for the pedestrians. It's so dangerous. And we walk down and we stand there, and there's one spot that you can see traffic this way and this way that we'll cross with our dogs. So the crosswalks that are there are useless because if you're too far down, you can't see the cars coming this way. And if you're too far up and they come up Hatchery, just fly. And that's another really dangerous spot. So there by the museum going down towards Hatchery, they never stop there. 50 cars, 25 didn't stop. And I watch them run the stop signs all day. So I don't know. I think that's kind of a good idea to let people know. You know, you're not supposed to go on 45 down First Avenue.
Well, my wife and I have found walking from our place to the post office. For 27 years, she walked from our place to Del Arte because that's where she was employed for 27 years. And she would walk 4 times a day. And we found that walking in the street, now there are sidewalks on that side, not on this side of First going up. But you walk in the street, people slow down as soon as they see you. And it makes a difference. So my wife and I take to walking in the streets. We're walking in public just to slow everything down. And most people are very, very considerate. I've seen nothing but consideration out here at this turn, which is a hard one because there's not a long advanced vision if you're coming at a certain angle. But once they see you in the street, most people stop a fair distance away to let you know it's safe. Now they may just be the blue lakers in the crowd, but I walk in the street deliberately to slow traffic down. I mean, it's it works. It works. Well, no,
Yeah,
most people pick them up. I mean, it's different than when I was a
sidewalks
kid.
are kind of rutted
Yeah,
up too, or
yeah,
there aren't any, like you pointed out.
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't advocate people walking the streets, but I see Rick Platts and Barbara do that. As well, the museum I know is an issue because museum ladies have often told, we've talked about that at our meetings, where we'll watch people going through that. That's just such a gnarly corner
It's a
there. I
terrible
mean,
corner.
it's such a problem to figure out what to do with that.
Mhm.
Or again, I think roundabout would work out nicely, but you would probably have to take maybe some of the end off there. And then we have a trail there too, which more families are using, which makes it more difficult. But we just had a museum meeting. Next one is not till the end of April, the 28th. But I'll bring that up because we're talking about plans anyway.
Yeah. And that's
So,
why the stop signs, they can be a real dangerous option. And that's the concern is that it's a false sense of security that people are going to stop. You can see the same thing every morning at the stop sign at the post office. People run it all all morning long, just blow right through it. And so, thinking about coming up on I Street and putting a four-way stop there and people thinking that they're safe and someone blows through it, and we know that stop signs don't work. I mean, they work for the majority of the people, but when they fail, it can be catastrophic.
If we
So,
don't have dedicated enforcement to have somebody parked
Mhm.
there and making people mind their P's and Q's, yeah, eventually people get
They
lax.
just go, yeah. So really it's, thinking about these road systems and physically slowing people down and not allowing them to, if you can get them at a slow enough speed, at least people have a chance. They have a chance to see you in time, you have a chance to see them, you have a chance to get out of the way, making those safe crossing points. But that's one of the biggest concerns. You can't just slap a stop sign and call it good because it just doesn't work.
well, a speed limit sign would be nice.
Hmm.
Um, like on I Street, if there isn't one, maybe that needs to happen. And I know when you first put stop signs out, you've put flags or
Mhm.
something on them to kind of, but then after a while that has to come down
Yeah.
and then people forget. So yeah, it's an issue. Um, all right, commissioners, I think we have reported on number 9. So we're on 10, future agenda items and announcements. Oh, you're the liaison. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a couple items to add. One of the things that the city council discussed last week or 2 weeks ago when we authorized the sheriff's contract was we asked Mandy to bring us back some pricing for animal control through the county. So hopefully we're going to be looking at that 2 weeks from tomorrow. There's been some changes in the fee structure for that service, as there was with all the services where it's population based, and so it's far more affordable than it has been in the past. So I'm hopeful that we might be able to secure those services through the county to make that more available to everybody in town. And I did get a flyer here from Ginger Campbell, who is one of the organizers for a Public Safety Sunday that is happening this Sunday at McKinleyville High School from 12 to 3. And they're going to have all kinds of demonstrations and helicopters and fun things for the whole family. So that's a good thing going on. And I think that's all I've got. Thanks. Is there anything in particular that you guys want me to convey to the council?
Be very careful about county animal control.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Any other announcements? Oh, coming from the liaison. Okay, we're on item 10, future agenda items and announcements. I guess we can continue with the sheriff review. I guess that will still be ongoing. I think we have some good plans for the fireworks, biblical fireworks issue. And then the program, again, I guess those continue. Anything the commissioners would like to see on?
I don't have a agenda item, but I'm gonna put this in. I'd like to thank the county and the city crew over there for locking down the power plant. It was very nicely done. I really enjoyed the way they used natural resources, to close up some of those gaps. And they looks like they've done a good job on it. We haven't seen any evidence of any tagging or any recently. So I think it. Oh, I also do you know did Public Works those regular checks, walkthroughs in there
Power plant?
for the power.
Yeah, we're in there almost every day.
Good.
We have it on, it's on at least 2 sets of rounds a day. And then on the weekends, it's on the rounds list. And then they do a weekly full perimeter check. And then, yeah, we're in there regularly.
Yeah, well, they did. Manufacturing was down there. Up at the Rancheria's gravel operation at that end of the lot, and there was a huge. They had used pulling the cyclone fencing apart and so on. That was really nicely done, nicely repaired and everything. So my congratulations to the Public Works for
Yeah, and it was a nice spot for the drop of the yard waste that day. Last week.
Get her forward well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got really found. Just drops.
No big mud holes to go through to
Yeah.
drop off your yard waste.
it's all one big
It was rather
one-
nice.
waste there.
But I think it was still hauled off that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good picture. Yeah, maybe we could get an update about the picture. And it will be something we can talk about. And then, maybe discussion of that corner right by the museum. And the market, maybe we can come up with some concrete things there. Like, careful.
Whose responsibility is the head as far as
That's a museum.
is it? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times Public Works will try and go by and kind of trim things up too. And we know the museum doesn't have a lot of resources.
And that's why I was wondering because I know my wife takes that little
Yeah, she's got the LID.
yeah, she's got that little area there that she takes care and I do the Grange as far as mowing it. But if it's just a matter of pruning it, when was that meeting with the
Well, the museum meets the last day of every month at 12 o'clock. So we just had one. So our next one is not till the end of April, April 28th.
We could check in with Cynthia though, if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I've got
Just
the
kind of trim
equipment.
that.
I've got the equipment. I could
You might just want to check the flag, and I think that's a CNN that's about to wait till it's done.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful flag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful book.
But
People can be upset.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay. No, and I'm just saying, if it's just a matter of something like that,
It's usually just kind of trim it back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the hedge clipper that
Take it off. That one as well.
yeah, flat top at the edges,
It's a
square
dry
it up,
spot.
make the walkway a little bit wider.
Okay, and
before you guys adjourn, I'm just going to ask if you had got people to your attendance on your minutes. One of those people is myself, and the other is missing. He was from we're here and make comments and I'll note it later here. That's but not listed as.
in the minutes from last meeting.
Yeah, the ones that you approved.
Yeah. Oh, you weren't on there.
I have a serious liaison, but.
Yeah, I remember. Oh,
Sorry, I'd like to, as I'm here in an official capacity, I'd like it to be noted.
and who's Mary Ann?
She made a comment and, she's noted in the back.
Right.
As making a comment. I don't know the last name.
Yeah, I don't either. Okay, other future agenda items? Safety issues in town? No? All right, then we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I second.
Motion made by Alex Ricka, seconded by Ted Hales to adjourn. Any further discussion from council or commission? Excuse me. Any from public? Back to commission. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.